Welcome to Q&A, Social Security Disability Today. This program is brought to you by the Reeves Law Firm, representing you and your Social Security and disability needs. If you have a problem or questions regarding Social Security and disability, call attorney Anthony Reeves. Here's your host, attorney Anthony Reeves.
Okay, I'm going to read this one off here because this is a little long, so bear with me. My question is this: does Social Security look at the total income I earned in self-employment, or do they look at the profit left after my fuel, insurance, licenses, and other bills? Yes, 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 yes. And you're like, what? I said, okay, listen carefully. And let me tell you why I say yes to all that. When I have persons who come to me talking to me about self-employment, the first thing I say is, do not focus solely on the money. Let me tell you why you don't focus solely on the money. Typically, employees, people who work, fall into two categories. You're employed by someone or you are self-employed. In essence, you're working for yourself. The two are inherently different in terms of how Social Security looks at them. You know why? When you're working for someone as an employee, you typically have a fixed set of responsibilities and duties that you're required to do. They don't tend to deviate a whole lot. If you're a ticket taker, guess what you do? You take tickets. If you're a toll collector, what do? You collect tolls. It doesn't vary a whole lot. Self-employment is a unique beast unto itself. It's unique because the person who's self-employed typically do not just do one thing. They wear a lot of hats. So guess what? Let's use a good example. Let's say that you are self-employed operating a lawn care service. Now, in your mind, you have just fixated on one thing. I cut grass for a living. I cut grass, I trim weeds, that's all I do. And you're in your mind thinking, that's it. Well, no, it's not it. Think about it from a logical standpoint. Break it down. First, let's assume it's just you're self-employed and it's just you. Okay, break it down accordingly. First of all, you cut grass. Okay, you weed. Okay, you trim. Okay, you also vacuum. Okay, you're thinking all that. Okay, who keeps upkeep on your equipment? Well, I do. Well, what do you mean by you do? Well, I make sure I change the spark plugs. I make sure I change the oil. I make sure I change the fluids. I make sure I replace the blades. I make sure I replace the spindles. I also make sure I replace the parts. Guess what that means? That means you're not only responsible for doing the work, you're also responsible for the maintenance of the work. You're also responsible for the upkeep. That means you're also probably dealing with invoices. You're also you're dealing with going to places and purchasing new items. Let me ask you something. Who monitors your client base? Meaning, do you deal with the person or does somebody else do? Well, I do. Well, guess what that is? That's customer service. Do you invoice them? Yes. Do you collect from them? Well, yes. What do you mean by collect? Meaning if they pay you late, do you send out bills to let them know that they're late? Yes. Do you follow up with regards to that? Yes. Do you deal with answering any concerns or complaints? Yes. See all the extra jobs that are popping in? Well, first you just said cutting grass. Well, now you're cutting grass. You're responsible for supply and logistics. You're responsible for customer service. Then let's even add more to that. How do you find clients? Well, I put up flyers. Oh, you put up flyers. Where do you put up flyers at? Well, I put up flyers in churches. I post on Craigslist. I put on Facebook. Do you monitor those things? Absolutely. Do you have to go and make presentations? Like, let's say somebody wants you to cut the yard at a church. Do you make a presentation to them? Do you quote them how much you would charge? Well, absolutely. See all those things? In your mind, you're thinking because I cut grass, that's it. You're thinking about the bills, the food, fuel, the income, and stuff you take home, and you say, well, Social Security says this is the threshold dollar amount, but this is the thing that's important. A lot of times, Social Security from a self-employment standpoint, the person is really it's a composite job. I mean, they have a lot of things that they're doing, a lot of different jobs they're doing at once. Add even more to this. Let's say that you have a couple of guys who work with you from a contractual standpoint, and you're saying, oh, they're not my employees, they're just people who work with me, I'll shoot them a couple of dollars. Great. How do you find those people? Well, go to the labor pools. Or I contact friends that I know. Great. Who pays them? I do. Oh, so you do human resources as well. Okay. Do you monitor to make sure they do what they're doing right? Well, yeah, because my clients require the grass to be cut a certain way. Ah, so you supervise. Listen to what I'm saying. You supervise. You go and you look at their what they do. Do you give feedback if they do something wrong? Do you answer complaints if people have problems? Do you correct the problems? Do you fire them? Do you make sure they get paid? Yeah. All those things are things that Social Security wants to know about. So I tell people when people come to me and they say, well, I don't make a lot of money. That's not really the biggest thing they're looking at. They're looking not only at the money, they're looking at how you're doing the self-employment. And there's usually not cut and dry. Now, I'll tell you, because the person who asked the question has a representative who they presented it to the court. And that's always a good thing because usually earnings pop up. Because the person typically who is self-employed, they file taxes. So guess what? The judge is going to want to know, how did you do the job? And they're also going to want to know because if you acquired skills from that self-employment, you may be able to use those skills for other things. So I say this to say this. When you're thinking about work from a self-employment standpoint, don't just focus on the money. Focus on everything you did when you operated in the capacity of running your own business or working for yourself. Because remember, when you're working for yourself, it's never as clean as you think in terms of you're not just cutting grass or washing or cleaning. Like I've had people who will say, oh, I used to, babysit or I used to clean houses. Yeah, if you're working for somebody doing that, that's one thing. But if you're doing it for yourself, trust me, you are wearing a lot more hats than you give yourself credit for.